have hired an ecologist in our planning department who's here with us today, Kat Superbisky. And she's going to be working on this project. So we're really excited to really be having scientists actually in the city family doing work that needs to be done. So our planning department, led by Connie Polini and her team, has been doing some really terrific work, as you'll see today. And we're all excited to roll it out to you and get your comments on it. Before I go, I also want to thank the groups who've been strongly supporting all these efforts: the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council, Benedict Canyon Association, CLAW, Citizens for LA Wildlife, the Hillside Federation, and so many other homeowners associations, neighborhood councils. It's really important to have your voice in the conversation because, as we know, the developers have a really large seat at the table, and it really takes people power to nudge them out. So most of all, thank all of you for being here today to help us continue and deepen this conversation and really get where we want to go. Thanks so much.
To kind of prove the point that we are, even on a kind of regional level, very, very lucky with where we're at, and a lot of kind of our geographic location is why it is that we have such great kind of diversity here. We are actually the only major city in the U.S. that has a major mountain range running through it, and you can see it highlighted here in the graphic on the Santa Monica Mountains. It's part of the Transverse Ranges, which link up with the San Bernardinos and San Gabriels. And because of that east-west orientation, we just have amazing natural communities that are able to exist in our hillsides and similarly be able to come down into the basin as well. So really, really unique conditions here within Los Angeles. And so it kind of begs the question of how is it that we can continue to live here in a place like Los Angeles, the second largest urban area in the country, but how can we do so a little bit more mindfully to where it's not just us living here, but we can live amongst the plants and the animals, and we can invite them back in and to enhance the space for them as well. And that's really what this effort that planning and the city of Los Angeles is helping to shepherd through, is to be able to help answer that question of how it doesn't have to be an either or, but it really is a how are we kind of having that symbiotic city of where we're able to live amongst the others.
Thanks so much for all your applause, and by your applause we hope we're on the right track. So just a few more slides before we have you come back and interact with our staff and with our survey. Kat had the great images. I have the maps because planners love maps, but what you see on the left, right? The green map is the ecological significance map. So when we talk about what some of the work that we've been looking at, the existing regulations, the existing policies of the city, the county in the 80s developed ecological significant areas, or areas, SEAs. Those are shown here in the green. And so you can see the pilot area that I do have a clicker. Okay, so the pilot area where we're currently standing in is the Santa Monica Mountains between the 405 and the 101. The areas that were identified for protection and for their natural resources were the significant ecological areas of the county. The city adopted those areas and understood their value in theory and in policy. We never came back and followed up with real regulations like we're talking about today. So we've made the connection between the ecological areas because we've also zoomed out to look at this area and see its importance to the regional connections. So Kat showed the maps of the globe, and we see our connection and our importance in a global sense. We also, sorry, there's a little wildlife flying around. We see our importance in the region, and particularly, I like to look, this is very corny, but I like to look and say this is the heart of Los Angeles. It's the heart because it's part of this connectivity. It's the heart where it is geographically, but it's also the lungs too. It has all the trees and the natural areas and the wildlife and the insects. It's all here for us to value and protect. So the effort that we've been looking at takes into account the regional significance that people have given to the areas that are of our more natural. So you have the Ballena wetlands, the Palos Verdes hillsides, the Verdugos, and then the hillsides and the rest of the region. So we see this area as being an important connection to that as well. The other thing you see on the map is the beige, is the Rim of the Valley study. So even at a state level, we've recognized the importance of our natural areas and how they envelop the city, and we can do a better job of connecting those. So we're working with both the county and the state to look at how we can do a better job of this. But at the same time, the map is very interesting. I might eat a bug, so just if I start choking, give me a second. It's enjoying my presentation immensely. The fire hazard map is really interesting to look at because it mirrors the exact areas, again, that are our natural areas. So we have to understand that there are systems in place that when we talk about keeping things natural, we also have to understand the ecological functioning of these areas and understand that they're also susceptible to hazards. And so we're also trying to solve for that issue as we develop regulations. Okay, and I alluded that we were planning to tackle other parts of the city for protection. And so we cutely named these other areas protection areas for wildlife paws, so that it's catchy. We know that people can help us with catchy things, so think about the paws. But the paws are the areas surrounding, if you think back to that other ecological map and to the fire hazard map, it really starts to make this connection to our pilot study that's, again, in the heart of this area that we're talking about. So part of our study, if you participated in the workshop last time, this is our composite map, or the maps that make up our composite map of biological resources that we are acknowledging have an important role to play and that really require us to think about land use regulations in a different manner. You see, and this map is replicated in the back, so you have water, wetlands, riparian, and you see just a little tiny bit of riparian. So part of what we've also been spending time is knowing that we don't have full access to all of the data that is, we know there are resources that have not been mapped. And so we've been reaching out to our partners to build our inventory of resources, because the best way to protect these resources is to acknowledge them and map them and develop regulations based on their presence. We're going to try and do both that and also write regulations for when resources present themselves through the development process. So that's an important thing to acknowledge. So we believe we have more riparian resources than are actually mapped currently. And so again, as experts, when people were coming in this morning, someone handed me a binder of work that had been done by a PhD student on streams in the pilot study area. We're very excited to look through that. If you have other expertise, other studies, we invite you to share those with the planning department so that we can add those to our inventory. The inventory also acknowledges parks and open space, our ridgeline. So we have a ridgeline study that's concurrent to this process, but we've brought in the concept of preserving ridgelines also for the inherent ability to connect those ridgelines and provide wildlife movement pathways. And then again, hearkening back to the discussion of hazards and safety, we've also looked at our flood zones to understand how those interact with our resources and how we need to be considering those situations in this development of regulations. Next. So here you have a couple of images that just help highlight what our unique topography is presenting to us in developing regulations. When you think about the regulations that are in our zoning code, and maybe these keep you up at night, maybe they don't. But our regulations, they're being updated, which is also exciting. But generally, our regulations were developed for a flat Los Angeles, for a Los Angeles that didn't really acknowledge the diverse topography, our rural, our mountainous nature, our coastal nature. So our zoning code is taking a look at the diversity of our city, and it's really dialing the type of regulations in and developing a more nuanced approach to land use regulations. We're trying to do the same for the hillsides, acknowledging that steep slopes present, some people see them as an opportunity for development. We see them as an opportunity to maintain areas for wildlife to move through. We also look at where streams are, or the presence of streams when the area was unaltered. So we're looking at ephemeral streams at the bottom of the canyons and ravines. My clicker's gone out. Hopefully, we just have a few more minutes. So the images on the far side also indicate that we're looking at the presence of roads and the presence of structures. So what is the relationship of the structures to one another and to the resources? We're really trying to regulate for that. Next slide. So another important image which really helps to underscore the importance of our open space. So right now our open space is used by humans for trails and for enjoyment of nature. It's also home to a lot of our wildlife. And we understand that having open space is vitally important, but connecting that open space is also vitally important. And so how we do that and how we allow humans to coexist in our natural area. I'm trying to coexist with this little gnat so much. So this image represents that coexistence. Next slide. And so second to last slide for you. So today you have been invited to help give some feedback to the regulations that we have developed based on the feedback that you gave us last year, based on our conversations with experts and with other people studying wildlife in this area. And so we've developed a few basic regulations that we think can really address a lot of the concerns we have. So the buffers that are being proposed are really 50-foot buffers from our natural resources that I covered earlier. And in addition to that buffer area, that's really meaning leaving the buffer area largely unobstructed. So no structures or few structures. We'd really love to hear your feedback on that. In addition, and complementary to that, is the idea of setbacks. Right now, we regulate where you place your structures, your homes, your pools, garages, etc. Sometimes we allow exceptions to those by not acknowledging the importance of setbacks. Here we're saying that the setbacks are so vitally important for leaving vegetation, for leaving pathways for wildlife, for leaving trees to do their natural functioning. We're saying leave those setbacks unobstructed. So those work in concert with the setbacks. They also work complementary to fencing. So we're not saying that you can't have fencing, because we understand not everybody wants a puma in their backyard. We want you to be secure and safe in your environment, but where you locate your fencing, we can dial that back too. We can say fencing can go, if it's permeable fencing, you can do the perimeter of your property. If it's impermeable fencing, that means you can't move through it, an animal can't move through it, then it should be on the interior of the setback. Then related to that, I mentioned keeping vegetation and the space and the buffer and the setbacks. We don't want to just leave those barren. We really want to encourage native landscaping, so a percentage of native landscaping, maintaining the landscaping and the trees that are there now, so with the premise that much of that is probably still natural, native, and mature. So the other really big concept is protecting trees in a broader sense, and we know that there are many efforts to increase the tree protections. We recognize that that is a significant effort to maintain our mature trees. So we're suggesting that in the hillsides we do even more to maintain and recognize the natural aspects of our mature trees. And then basic provisions for lighting, windows, and trash enclosures, and all of these things are explained on the boards, if I didn't already say that. But the idea of minimizing conflicts for wildlife by downshielding lighting, by the placement of lighting, by regulating the types of windows, I think I just said the windows in the area, so angling new windows, providing etching or fritting on the windows, and also just enclosing trash. It's a simple concept, and it's a low-cost concept, but enclosing your trash to provide for minimizing the conflict with animals. So those are the summary of the regulations. Just because you're probably wondering how much longer are we going to be at this, we have our next steps here. So we want to get your feedback today. So today is meant to be interactive. Now that we've concluded the presentation portion, we want to invite you to share your expertise, your knowledge about the area. Give us feedback about these proposed regulations. Let us know if we've missed something big. We think we've covered everything, but we may have missed something, so we really want to hear that from you. We have heard from some of the participants today that the pilot area should be bigger. We need to include other parts of the city. We absolutely agree. You can give us that feedback. We'll see what we can do. The idea is that we would come back in a couple months with a draft ordinance. So that's the actual language that will be required of new development. And then with that draft ordinance, then we begin the public process, which is the formal public hearing process. And that takes a couple months, and there are anywhere from 3 to 5 hearings. So there's still more process to go. We're a city department. We have to do process. So when people say, what's taking you so long, process takes us a little bit of time, but we assure you we're making progress, and we really appreciate that you've taken your time this Saturday morning, a beautiful day. Hopefully you're going to make some time to go hiking and enjoy the nature that we're trying to protect. So we really appreciate your time and your efforts here to support our efforts. The other thing I should say, if you hadn't already picked up a survey, there's multiple ways to give us your feedback. If you want to give us your feedback today and leave your comments, you can drop your survey into the box. You can also spend more time and share out with your friends and your neighbors. You can take the survey. We have, Rubina, maybe you could hold up the little, the QR code. Thank you, I couldn't remember what it's called. A big QR code, a little QR code. You can take this online. And if you have questions, you can come see me or any of the staff. Thank you so much for sitting here.